Hi, this is page 15 in your 2B equations packet for pre-algebra. These are some words that indicate different operations. Now you have to be a little careful with keywords because sometimes depending on how they're used, but hopefully this will be of help. To let you know a little bit about more what's going on. I'm going to show you using what is referred to here as a spurt method, okay, that we're going to be thinking of what's our starting point, and then plus or minus our unit rate times our x, or whatever we let our variable be, and then that equals the total. All right, so there are other ways, but that's what we're going to do. And so just like a little way to identify. So here you see, instead of using X, H has been used for the Hot Wheels, and 35 has already been spent, plus 250 for H is equal to 50. And then they're two-step equations. So for the most part, I am not planning to solve these equations after I set them up, because we have done many two-step equations, many multiple-step equations that have turned into two-step equations, and so I don't feel like that's where you need my help. And so we're going to work on setting them up. A few of them I will also write down the solutions so that you see when it says like solve and identify your answer, like label your answer, give it the right units so that you see what I'm talking about in that regard. So first we're going to do something called defining the variable. And I do not mean that you tell me a variable is a letter that represents an unknown. Like, we're going to say, for instance, that x is equal to, what are we looking for, basically, like answering that question. What are we looking for? And so for that reason, I actually start these problems at the end, because I like to begin my work with the end in mind. So like, what am I even trying to do? Well, if I go to the end, I see it says, how many months has he had his phone? So I'm looking for a number of months. So I'm going to say that x, as my variable, is equal to months. Months he has his phone. So now I'm ready to write my equation. I go back. I know I'm going to probably need numbers from this, right? So I'm going to really focus on those numbers. Gosh, I got lots of numbers. And I see that, remember, we're using that starting point. So the phone company charges $100 for the new phone. All right, that seems like a starting point, right? That's only happening once. So they charge $100 for a new phone and $50 per month. Per is that unit rate. It's per month. It also, because it says per month, and we have already identified that our variable is the months he's had the phone, so that's the 50 is what is going to go with the x. And then the total is what he has spent so far, including his services. And then we have our two-step equation, and we can solve that two-step equation. When we solve that two-step equation, we come out with 8. And then we're not just going to say 8, and we're certainly not going to say $8. We're going to make sure it answers the question. How many months has he had the phone? 8 months. And some of you previously, and it wouldn't be wrong, some people like to even write a sentence. Some teachers require that you write a sentence. He has had the phone for 8 months. I don't typically, except in my dual credit class, I don't typically require that you write an entire sentence, but I do require that for the word problems you give it a label like the word months. I think it helps us realize if it seems reasonable or not, and just that we're answering the question, because sometimes the question could be a little different, and if we put a label on it and we're like, wait, this doesn't really fit. So let's try setting up another one of these. They are all pretty predictable, so I don't foresee that you'll have a lot of trouble, but I do want to give you a couple for practice. So the second example here is that Amanda had $121 in her wallet, la 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 la. That's what it starts to sound like to me. So I'm going to go to the end again. How many, because I like to know, what should I even be focusing on? I get distracted, like thinking about her wallet and yoga class. Oh, wow, I want to do yoga. Okay, let's just back up. How many hours did the babysitter work? So you could use H for hours. I just usually, keep it simple and stick with X. So I'm going to say X is hours. X represents the hours. And so then as I just glance at the problem, I see that here there's a per hour. So this number is the one that's going to get the X. The 850 is going to get the X. So here, our equation, think about what was the starting point. The starting point, Amanda started with $121 in her wallet. Now she's paying the babysitter $8.50 an hour. So for Amanda, that's taking money out of her wallet. So I'm going to call that negative 8.50x. And then what she has left at the end is equal to 95.50. So it's kind of in the order that it happened. You might also think that the 95.50 plus the money she spent on the babysitter is equal to the total. That would be okay also. I just kept it in the order of the story that the problem told. Both ways, I should come out with the same thing. And then in this case, again, we see money, but that's not what we're asking for. We're asking for the number of hours. So I should get, when I get my answer, I'm going to have a certain number of hours. So if I solve the equation that I had there, and I do 95.50 subtract 121 to get that x by itself, I get negative 25.50, and then divide both sides by negative 8.50, and x is 3. Now, if I was tempted to say negative 3, that doesn't really make sense. We can't babysit for negative 3 hours. The babysitting might be a horrible experience, but it's still a positive number of hours. So 3 hours would be my answer. All right, so you have some practice problems on the next few pages. I think there are maybe 2, 4, 6 practice problems for that. Okay? Thank you.